Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and Anne-Marie McEwen here on this Sunday, November the 4th, 2018, 8 p.m. New York time. This is your weekend dose of happy, and it's actually the second podcast I've done this weekend, Anne-Marie, because it's been an unusual weekend. I've been doing some experimenting, seeing what I can do to reach out more through the Facebook group, the Law of Attraction Changed My Life group, and did a little trial balloon today, so I'll tell you a little bit about that. But how you doing? How's your weekend been going?
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, Walt. Sounds good. And I've been having a great weekend. It's been a great weekend. I just finished a big concert at my church that I've been practicing for months. So it was a grand celebration, and the mayor was there, and
wow.
President of the Chamber of Commerce and president of Wesleyan University were all there. It was just an amazing afternoon.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, it sounds like you've been having a good weekend yourself. Outstanding.
Yes, it's been a very good weekend. No complaints on this end.
Yeah, actually, my weekend, my weekend is all weekends start on Saturday. Well, actually, some weekends start on Friday. I guess it depends on where you decide to start. But in my case, it started on Saturday with, I've been thinking for some time now about expanding to doing work on the weekend when we would have the most chance of reaching people who would be participating in that Facebook group, the Law of Attraction Changed My Life group that we're live streaming to. And weekend obviously is a good time to try to catch people. And I've been toying with, various things that you can do to, what's the best way to reach them, to give them what they're looking for and so forth. And so yesterday I actually posted on the group a post that essentially said, I want to do these podcasts. I want to do these live streams to the group. What topics would you like me to do? Kind of left it open. And I kind of fed them a few basic ones, law of attraction, where wealth is concerned, health, relationships, cars, homes. I kind of like seeded the list a little bit and then let them go at it, and got some stuff added to the list and a lot of votes from a lot of people. Not surprisingly, the one that came out number one was wealth and money. That was the top priority.
Right.
Tied for second was health and relationships. They both came in with the same number of votes, and they were a little bit behind money, but they were up there for sure. And so it didn't surprise me at all, but it kind of reaffirmed that, that's the right general place to go. And I let people know that my intention was to start scheduling stuff to be done on the weekends, give people advance warning that it was happening so they could plan for it and so forth, and then, start doing them. And this morning I woke up, I said, you know what, I'm going to try the first one today just to see what happens, even though I'm not giving them a lot of notice. I figured I would announce it in the morning and then do it in the afternoon. And so I did. I put a thing out in the morning, and this afternoon at about 4 p.m. New York time, did a little half-hour segment, and was fairly well attended, actually. Learned a lot too. One of the things I learned, interestingly enough, is that my setup here. I have this setup here that allows us to do the podcast, to record the podcast, to broadcast it live, and to connect in through this Blue Jeans platform that we use to do the live stream to Facebook, which does a lot of computing. There's a whole lot of computing going on there. And there's something about that, believe it or not, interferes with how Facebook feeds back to me the comments that are coming in on the live stream post, because a live stream goes in as a post in the group. And I didn't realize that it actually interferes with the comments. So I was seeing like 5 or 6 comments when there were like 50 to 55. Which was a little disconcerting. I mean, the ones that I got were good ones because they were the ones I had asked for some direct participation from the audience, and they were the most participatory comments. So that was good, and it gave me enough to work with. But I realized afterward that my setup needs just a little bit of work, because the way I'm doing it right now, Facebook couldn't feed to me fast enough the stuff that I needed to know in order to know who's responding. So, no, but it was all good. It was good.
So you got some, but it just wasn't feeding you fast enough. It
wasn't feeding them at all. It wasn't feeding them. I mean, literally, by the end of it, I was like refreshing the page to see if there was more there, and I still only saw the 5 comments. And I said, well, I guess we're done then.
But how did you see the 5 comments? Yeah, that was interesting.
I don't know.
How you saw 5 comments.
I don't know. It's a mystery.
Yes, well, IT is not my department, so good luck with all of that.
Well, thank you. It's my department, and I'm still figuring it out, to be perfectly honest. But no, it was good. It was a good thing. What I think I figured out is I got to make sure that I always have a co-host doing it so that the co-host can be checking at their end because they're going to be able to see the whole thing even if I can't. So have the co-host be the person
Okay.
to see, okay, are there comments coming in? What are they saying? Read them onto the show, all that kind of thing. So that's probably going to
Right.
be the
Right.
solution. But yeah,
Right.
and what I did was I actually decided to do an experiment uh, in terms of the content of the program because I've been reading a book. This was actually recommended to me by Linda Armstrong. Can you see the book, The Power of Eight by Lynn McTaggart? And I've been reading it. Interesting book. It's basically a book that is written by an investigative journalist who wanted to do scientific research on whether or not it is actually possible for people to help influence other people through what we could euphemistically call non-religious prayer, meaning group intentions, groups putting out intentions, law of attraction type
Mhm.
intentions to help somebody.
Yep.
And she did a whole lot of research on it, and that book is like the culmination of a lot of her research. And she had some really fascinating
Mhm.
results that came out of it. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of interesting to kind of repeat what she does? Because she had done most of her stuff aimed at things like trying to develop peace in the world and to
Mhm.
lower crime rates and to do healings of people who are suffering from severe, stage 4 cancer and horrible physical ailments and things like that. And I was thinking, well, that's great, but my needs and the needs of the immediate audience, I think, are a little bit more mundane than that. Like, people just want to attract more money. They want to have a
Sure.
right relationship. They want to have a nice home to live in. Much more simple, everyday kind of stuff. So I figured let's take the same
Right.
basic concept and see if we can apply it to the more everyday kind of stuff. So that was kind of the impetus
Right.
behind it. And today we did it on wealth and money, and ended up
Uh-huh.
basically putting intentions out for 4 or 5 people, something like that. And it was good. It was an interesting experiment. I still have to do some follow up on it because my intention, besides putting out the intentions to help people, is also to kind of do a little bit of tracking. I don't want to do it like a scientific experiment with controls and all that kind of thing, but I do want to kind of follow up with people who volunteer to be the target, so to speak, to be the one that people are putting their intentions out for, and see, does it help? How often does it help? When does it help? When does it not help? When does it work out? When does it not work out? So that's going to be some of the follow up that I'm going to be doing. And I see that Mark is joining
Great.
us. So let me unmute Mark because I always been muted. But Mark, how
Oh,
you
sure.
doing?
Great. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. I need you to
Got all caught up and that was horrible of me, but I'm here now.
I need you to do me a favor
All right.
because between you and Anne Marie, your volume is about twice as loud as hers, and I can't regulate the
Oh,
two compared to each other. So can you bring your mic volume down a little bit? Because I had to ramp Anne Marie's up. If you could do that, that would be helpful. Yeah, one of these days, I mean, it would be wonderful if I actually had separate streams for everybody, because then I could just run it like a control board. But unfortunately, when it comes over through like the Blue Jeans platform, it all comes through as one signal, and it's either, it's just one way. It's
wow.
whatever it is. I don't have a lot of control over it.
I don't have a mic volume. Should I
You
just push
don't.
the mic farther away?
All right, try that. Let's see
Just
what we
any
get.
better?
Yeah, that's better. That
How's
works.
this?
Yeah, go with that.
Okay.
Go with that for now. Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
That way you won't be drowning Anne Marie out because we don't want that.
Yeah, well, we don't want that.
No. So I was just
Thank
telling.
you, gentlemen.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, you're an important piece of the puzzle here for the podcast. I mean, we got to
Well,
have your voice.
I'm at least 1/3 of it anyway.
At least, yeah, I would say at least.
And you have seniority.
Well, halfway. I'm halfway on seniority. I'm senior over you, and not senior. I'm junior to him, junior to Walt. So, how you doing, Mark?
Oh, now that I'm here, I'm great. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing well too. Thanks.
I was just telling
Doing
Anne
well.
Marie about
Yeah.
a project that I was doing this weekend. We had a special event in the same Law of Attraction Changed My Life group that we're live streaming to right now. I've been wanting to. I won't try to go over the whole thing, but I've been wanting to do an experiment with group attention to particular needs of people, and so I did the first one today, and learned a lot about it, learned a lot from it, and I I mean, it was interesting. I don't know what the results are going to be because it's too early to say what they're going to be. But the idea is to find out, does it actually work? Does it work for us if we start putting the power of the group all into, okay, let's focus on person A, we'll help A attract what they're looking for, and person B will help them attract what they're looking for, and so on and so forth. So it's the early stages of an experiment yet to be determined.
I have a question. So are you actually intending for another person, for them to receive the thing that they want to receive?
Right. Exactly. In other words, we're using the power of the group to amplify what they're doing.
Right. But yet, the way I understand it, that person would still have to be in the allowing phase or stage, or, just be open and allowing, be in that receiving stage of what it is that they're wanting. That's interesting to see if the power of many could overpower, or, the power of, or the influence of one person, the one person being the one for whom this thing is intended.
Mm-hmm. No, you're raising a good point. It's a very good point. And I think the answer is that you're right. They have to, at least to some degree, be open and be in a good receiving mode. If they're in a really bad receiving place, it's, I guess, just the fact that they want it at all, even if they're in a bad mood, bad feeling place. I suppose a group could help kind of force them to get to the point where they get it anyway. But it would probably have some unintended consequences, I would think, because that's what usually happens when we're not in a good aligned place. When let's say I want to have, I don't know, I'm just going to make something up. Let's say I want to have a cab appear in a place where there should be no cab, but I need a cab to go somewhere. And I am in a really unhappy mood, and I'm just angry, and I'm pissed off and so forth. And I say, damn it, I need a cab right now. And the cab shows up, and it's driven by, some I don't know, like a terrorist or something, right? Well, not exactly the cab I really wanted, but I did get a cab out of it. I mean, that's kind of a far-fetched example, but it kind of makes my point that you want to be in the good feeling place to attract the right kind of stuff. So I think you're right. A group could probably help force the issue. I'm not sure if it'd be a good idea, though, if they're not in alignment with what it is they want. So yeah, good question. Very good question. And I don't know how we're going to test for that either. I mean, how do you test for that? These are all people who are on the internet at diverse places around the world. It's not like you can coordinate them. This is like herding cats, right? You just can't do it.
Right. So I mean, I've thought about, I've heard about having group prayer for weather changes. For example, when there's a drought, people in an area, or people just wherever they are all over the world, praying for rain for that area.
Sure.
And then rain comes, or a variety of things like that. But that'll be very interesting to have people intending. I mean, I guess it raises an interesting question: is what's the difference between a prayer and an intention? Now, of course, I'm not talking about praying to specifically God or Jesus or Mary or Mother God or a particular angel or a particular relative, for that matter. You can pray to a particular relative who's passed and ask them to intercede for you or something like that. So, but just a general prayer, what's the difference between a general prayer and an intention?
It's a valid question. To me, I mean, I think I can only answer for myself, because this is one of those subjective areas. I think it depends on how you define the words. But for me, the difference is whether or not you have a religious context. If you have a religious context, then it's a prayer. If you don't have a religious context, then it's an intention. But that's my definition, and it may not be true for everybody.
Okay, Mark, what do you think?
I think the answer's in the question. It's all about what your intention is. Does that make sense? When you're making the thought, are you praying? It's the person giving it.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's, are you Are you asking for God's help in any way, or any other person's help in any way, or are you just intending for that thing to happen? I don't know. It's tricky. Yeah.
When you said that it depends on what you intend, what did you mean, Mark?
Well, I mean, you have to get inside the mind of the person making the request. Like you said, are they a religious person, or are they just believing in the laws, or just are they desperate?
I see. Okay.
So it's kind of like it's you just go back to the source.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, it's almost a question of potato or potato. It doesn't really matter what you call it so much.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting question. What is the difference between a prayer and an intention? What do you think it is, Anne-Marie? I mean, you raised the question. What's your take on it?
Well, I guess I think that when you're just making an intention, you're calling upon the laws of the universe, which I believe were instituted or created through the power of God, or through the intention of God, bajillions of years ago, or whenever that was. And if you're making a prayer, when you're making a prayer, you're directly speaking to God or some person or some entity and asking their help to make that thing happen. To me, that's what it is. If I'm asking God, or if I'm asking an angel, or I'm asking my spirit guide, or I'm asking a dead relative or mother God, if I'm asking them to like kind of work their magic on it, because I believe that everybody's energy can add to what it is that you want to happen. In other words, if I wish for something to happen, there's so much energy going to that. But like you're just talking about before, if you have a collection of people and they all put their energy toward it, then you've got more energy toward that thing happening. Likewise, if you ask God, or if you ask Mother God, or if you ask Jesus, or you ask anybody else, you ask your Aunt Mary for them to help that cause, that your intention, then to me, then that's a prayer.
Okay,
does that make sense?
So the differentiator is whether or not you're asking a conscious being, whether a physical or non-physical.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I guess so for me. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's reasonable. That's a reasonable way to look at it. I mean, it all gets a little bit confusing after a while, and this is where you can get into all kinds of discussions and even fights about what the nature of the spiritual realm is. But what are the differences? Is God part of source energy? Is God separate? Is God like the head of source energy? Is source energy just one of the laws of the universe? Is it a being? It's like, oh, geez, you start getting down 1,000 rabbit holes all at once. So
right,
that's part of the fun of that kind of question. Ultimately, though, there's a side point in there too that's really interesting. You mentioned the idea of what happens when you amplify, and in the book, The Power of Eight, written by Lynn McTaggart, that I'm using as sort of a reference point for what we're doing, she mentions how it often doesn't make any difference what the number is. Sometimes she observes an amplifying effect, sometimes she doesn't. And I'm curious about that. Why would that be? I don't have an answer for it. And I haven't read the book carefully enough and thoroughly enough all the way through to see what she says about it. But it's an interesting point. I mean, when I was talking about this whole concept with Linda Armstrong on Friday, her point was, well, you don't really need a group. One person can do this. One person can attract stuff, which is true. I mean, one person can attract stuff.
Right.
And yet there is also, there's very little doubt that there is an amplifying effect when multiple people are involved. I mean, there's lots of evidence of that. And there's also, I think, there's like a benefit of the group doing it. When there's a group of people, I think it actually helps to focus. When you have a whole bunch of people all focused on the same thing, it improves the focus. Everybody's focused on that much more directly. Whereas if you're like studying off on your own someplace, it's so easy to be distracted because it's just you. But when it's the whole group, it's like it's almost like there's a magnetic thing going on there. You know what I mean? Where like everybody's being drawn in because they're all focusing on the same thing. And
That
Sure.
reminds
And
me.
yeah.
I was at a World Series game once, and that old phrase that there's electricity in the air.
mhm.
When there were 60,000 people pulling for our team, it was a weird feeling, like my head was in a fishbowl. But you had 60,000 people all pushing for the same thing,
Mhm.
and so that's what made
Yeah.
you said something about, is it one person or is it a large group of people?
Yeah.
So I definitely believe in the power numbers there.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've all experienced it.
I think
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that makes going to a football game or any kind of an event in a large stadium like that so attractive to a lot of people, is because they get into that, they get to feel the energy from all those people being together. And I think that's probably in some way very addictive. It's just so overwhelming, and it feels so good, and it feels so powerful to people that they love that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's what you were feeling at the World Series game, Mark.
Right. Right.
And the interesting thing about that is when you're in that kind of a crowd situation and you feel there's like a surge every time that the crowd gets excited about something. There's a surge of energy. It's tangible. It's visceral. It's a feeling that it's
Yeah.
like you can feel the walls shaking, so to speak. It's pretty
Yeah.
intense.
Well, like I said, it was like my head was in a fishbowl. The people I were talking to, their voices didn't sound right. Everything just, it really, and just looking out across the stadium. It was when the Braves won their very first World Series too, so that added a lot more vibe to it. And it just felt, it's hard to describe. It's kind of like when I was a little kid and I had a high fever, those fever dreams you have. It was the closest thing. That's the closest thing I can compare it to. Only I wasn't sick. It
Wow.
just and it kind of all went away once we went up to the car and got away from the 60,000 people that were all buzzing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
I've never felt anything like that before since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Now,
that's
have
what
you
it
been
takes.
to other big stadiums like that since?
Oh, I've been in several stadiums, but for several games, and it's like you said, you feel the energy and you feel the buzz, and it's a lot more fun. But this particular time, the Braves have been trying to get to a World Series forever, and it was our first World Series, and it was just that another level of excitement. And
Wow.
well, I don't know what else to call it, but it was just such a weird, cool feeling.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. It's been a long time since I've been in a stadium, but I
Well,
remember being there as a kid.
the dynamics of an excited crowd, and it doesn't have to be a World Series. It can be any sporting event. But the dynamics of a
It
really
could be
excited
any
crowd
event.
are just they can get quite powerful, to the point where it can
Yeah.
almost be spooky. I mean, they talk about home field advantage. Home field advantage is quite real, especially in that kind of an intense
Oh yeah.
situation like a World Series or Super Bowl or something like that. That's why they don't play Super Bowls for the most part in the field of one of the competing teams, because it would be so unfair to have that kind of advantage. It's a huge advantage.
That's right.
So getting back to the whole idea of doing this stuff where we are trying to influence people. I mean, I have been thinking about it purely in terms of, how can we positively help others? That's the way I've been looking at it. But it's also been occurring to me, there's another side to this thing. And I haven't explored it much, but I wanted to ask you guys about it. It is possible to use these kinds of powers in order to achieve, and I don't want to be disparaging, so I'll try to find a nice, polite way to say it, but to achieve less than desirable goals that are, going to harm some people in order to benefit others, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
It's possible to do that kind of thing. And I'm not quite sure how to avoid that scenario, other than to think just in terms of, well, every time I do this stuff, I'm always going to be focused on love. I'm going to be focused on the highest levels of emotion. But what do you guys think? Is that something that I should even be concerned about? And if so, what do you do?
Oh, it's this classic good versus evil. You absolutely have to watch out for that. I mean,
And so what do you do? I mean, what's the strategy? How do you compensate for it?
wow. In my case, I would just say
In 5
keep the
sentences
right
or less.
attitude. Just keep thinking.
It's
Oh, I mean, it's like one sentence. Just
One
keep the right
sentence.
attitude and just keep believing what I'm believing. I mean,
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's really what it comes down to. Because ultimately, what's in your heart and what you're really feeling, that's going to drive it anyway. So, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess that's really the thing. As long as you're coming at it with, from the highest position you can come at, well, then you're doing the best you can with it.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
You can't stop the other people
Nope.
or
Nope.
people from thinking what they're thinking. So you just do the best you can.
Nope. That's true.
That's why I think it's important to get yourself centered and in that proper place and in a place of love and, before you even start.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because whatever tenor, whatever emotional spot we're in, that's going to be the driving force behind the whole scene anyway, behind the whole experience. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that's true, and it's also going to be a kind of a test to see, can you stay there. I mean, I don't think it's going to be too difficult, because I found every time that I do a podcast with you guys or one of the other co-hosts or do one of these special events, it always gives me a boost anyway. So I don't think there's a whole lot of problems staying there. It's kind of like Mark going out on stage and, he gets his first few laughs and then, considering the idea that he'll just kind of, fall into a depression. It's not likely to happen. When you get those laughs coming in, you're in that happy place. It's going to carry you, right?
Right. That's very true.
Yeah. So I don't think you have to really worry about it once you get it going. It's just getting it going that's the main thing. So.
Mm-hmm.
We had come up with a topic, and I completely lost what the topic was. Do you remember what the topic was, Anne Marie?
Yeah, I forget what we called it, but it was something about the past.
Right,
I've been
yes.
talking to my husband a lot about the past and looking at our old beliefs and trying to determine what they are and figuring out how to let go of them. And, before you can really embrace new ideas and new beliefs, you've got to let go of the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the tricky thing, is if you sometimes don't recognize what they are, they can hold you back. And, I've been listening to Abraham for a long time, and I realize and I know that you've got to focus on where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like sometimes there's things in our beliefs that are so strong and so underlying that they hold us back.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't realize how strong they are. And sometimes I think it's important to uncover them before you can actually accomplish moving forward successfully.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, I could be wrong, but so that's what my husband Mike and I were talking about earlier. And they say that by the time you're 7 years old, you've formed a lot of these beliefs that will determine sort of how you think and how you feel throughout the course of your life. So it's tricky. I don't know how to go back to thinking about what kind of beliefs I formed when I was from 0 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but.
Well, a lot of life is waiting for those things to come up and then dealing with them. I mean, most life coaches will tell you it's not a good idea to go looking for them because they'll come up. It's not like you have to go find them. They'll show up one time or another. The main thing is just being mindful when they do come up and realizing, oh, that feels like something that was programmed into me long ago. I wonder what it might have been, and then trying to delve into it and find out what it is and do something about it.
Right.
Most coaches will tell you don't go looking for them. It's hard enough to just stay in the positive zone. You don't need to go looking for trouble. Yeah, yeah. That's actually something that I raised as a question over the summer with both Cindy Chavez and Wendy Dillard when she was doing the podcast with me. And both of them emphasized, no, don't go looking for them. It's not a good idea. That'll just lead you down a bad rabbit hole. You don't need to go there.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
And I see a
cool,
203 number. I have a feeling Mike's contacted us. Mike, is that you?
I think he's calling in, yeah.
Oops. He's trying to talk.
I think Mike's my husband.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Try again, Mike. Oh, Mike is. Oh, well, he's muting himself, so I guess he's saying no, he doesn't want to. So we'll just leave it as that. But,
no, I don't think he wants to be muted. So, can you unmute him, or does he need to do that?
Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Hey, hi gang. How
Hey
you
there,
doing?
Mike.
How's
Thanks
it
for calling
going?
in. Thanks for figuring out your mute button too.
Well, I'm kind of new at this technology here on these podcasts, but it is kind of fun for me.
That's good. That's all
Uh,
right.
I just wanted to chime in a little bit. I'm listening in the background to Anne Marie talking, and I wanted to report to you on the mirror work. This is week 3 today, my third week of looking into the mirror in my eyes
Oh, good for you.
and going through that whole process. And it
What's
judges up some of the things that Anne Marie's just been talking about. Some of the past seems to float to the top when you when you start this process. So
Now I got to ask you,
the
when you first started doing it, did you run into what I ran into, which is the first couple days you try to look in your own eyes and say these nice things to yourself and you can't bear to even do it?
yeah, it was like a 3 second process. Day one, and I said, well, I got to get back into it. So it was quick little. I would pass by the mirror. I'd start off in the morning, and then throughout the day, if I passed by the mirror, I'd try it again and made the uncomfortable a little more comfortable.
Hmm.
And so
Persistence.
it's a great thing to. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to do. Just beware when you start down that road, things that can come up through that process that you have to deal with. And a lot of it is what Anne Marie's talking about, the past things that you kind of like bury along the way. And all of a sudden you're faced with it again. But now you have a tool to work with a little better. That voice is not so loud anymore. It's really not. It's not there as much. It'll pop in now and then, a little voice in your head that tries to ruin things on you. That quiets down, after you work the mirror for a while, but certain times it'll pop back up again.
But what you're suggesting is you've actually made some progress. You've seen some positive results from doing the mirror exercises for what, 3 weeks now?
3 weeks, by far, I want to say the most difficult self-help technique that I've ever tried to process.
I know what you mean. It's not easy. It's not easy. It takes some
It's not
discipline to do
easy.
it.
Yeah, it's not easy, but I recommend that everybody to do it. It helps. It helps a
Hmm.
lot. It kind of reminds me of like the first time I entered a laughter yoga class with my wife, and the first time I met Anne Marie, and I'm like 3 minutes into it, I'm like, this is ridiculous. What are you doing? I can't believe you're doing all these silly little skits and you're acting like a fool. but everybody else is laughing, so we're not laughing, we're just laughing together. So, first, it's a little crazy at first. It's like, this is silly. I just want to walk away. But you realize that you receive some benefits from it after a while. It's like anything else. You just have to keep doing it. But I recommend doing the mirror work. I'm having some really good results with it. It's also created some challenges for me to work through some of those issues of what's there that's deeply hidden in abundance blockers, I want to call them. The little things that you're not aware of. I guess maybe it's locked up in the subconscious somewhere.
See, that's news
Once
to
you
me
start
because
looking in
I
that
didn't run
mirror.
into that when I was doing the mirror exercises for my 30 days, first 30 days anyway. I didn't run into that at all.
Uh-huh.
I ran into some times when it was just difficult to do it, but I didn't run into stuff that
Right.
actually just blocked me. You're running into stuff that's blocking you, which I would say is actually a good thing because you're unearthing it. But that's got to be a different kind of experience. I don't even know how to relate to it in that sense from the mirror exercise point of view. I mean, that any of us, we've all worked in, run into stuff in our time where something popped up from our early days, and all of a sudden we have to deal with it or bury it away or whatever we're going to do. But during mirror exercises, I haven't had that. That must be a different experience.
Well, some things that in my past I just wanted to forget maybe, or
Mm.
I don't know. But certainly after 2 weeks of mirror work, I was able to deal with it in a way that I've never been able to deal with it, because now I have a little more familiar with being in the mirror, and not only telling yourself that you love yourself, but congratulate yourself on the simple little things that you do, like reward yourself. Congratulations, Mike, for being able to get through that without ruining your whole day, or possibly walking around upset and ruin somebody else's day when they said something to you, and you flare up at them. So it really seems to help process deep things that bother you that you're not even really aware that you're bothered by it until, maybe you're upset about something else, and then that just seems to surface. And
Mark,
mirror work helps you be. What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish your thought.
No, it's just the mirror work allows you that, it gives you that tool, that extra tool to stay with it and not bring it to the next level of what I like to call pain body.
Yes.
But recognizing it and know how to deal with it, the mirror work is great for that. So I'm a much better person to live with now.
Well, good. That's a great thing. That means you have made progress. So that's very good.
Maybe my wife will vouch for that as well.
I was just saying that Mark may wonder what we're talking about. Mark, I don't know if we've ever talked about mirror work since you've been on the show, have we?
No, but I didn't want to interrupt his flow. I figured I could ask you later.
Oh, okay.
You tell me eventually.
Do you want to describe it to him, Mike?
Go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead. Well,
okay.
You're the one that started all this.
The basic idea with mirror work is the primary goal that most people do mirror work with is to try to get that negative chatter out of the head. That voice that just keeps popping up and it just drives you nuts throughout the day as you're trying to get into a good feeling place or dealing with stuff in a positive way without blowing up at somebody or whatever. And so the mirror work, the idea of it is that you spend time, usually in the morning every day, at first maybe only a minute or two per day, just talking to yourself in the mirror and being kind to yourself and telling yourself how much you love yourself and you care about yourself and you appreciate what you've been doing and congratulate yourself for all the things that you're doing in order to kind of build up your self-esteem and build up your self-love so that you can be in a better place as you deal with stuff throughout the day. And if you stick with the process for a 30-day period, I found it's true, and other people have found that the self-talk, the negative self-talk in your head goes away, and your head actually goes silent, which for me was it was kind of a staggering thing. Like, oh my God, the chatter's gone. Oh, what a relief that is! Yeah.
Right.
So that's why I ended up doing it, and I told these guys about it too. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this exercise.
Something I've done is kind of similar to this. It's just something I came up with on my own. And how many times have you ever been you did something terrible, you're in a horrible situation, and you wish you could just turn back time to yesterday morning and start over from that point?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
yeah.
If I'm about to go on a trip, or if I'm about to go do something big, or if I'm just starting a week, I'll go, okay, I'm starting over now. If I was going to do anything bad this week, or something horrible is going to happen to me, or I was going to do something stupid, I'm here now. I can think about it and move forward without letting myself get into those situations. Does that make any sense?
Kind of.
Yeah, that's kind of like what we call pre-paving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like
and the mirror work is another great way for that too, because before the mirror work, Anne Maria would remind me, are you pre-paving your day to intend it to go a certain way? Especially a task that you're really not excited about going off and doing, but seeing it in a way that it's going to work out for you. And being able to look in the mirror and say that, verbalize that to yourself in the mirror, it's a lot more powerful than just thinking about how your day should go. But look at yourself and say, well, my day's going to go this way because I'm in balance with myself and I feel good about myself and we are going to have a successful day. And it just seems to give it a lot more power.
That's a much better version of what I've been doing.
Well,
okay.
actually, what you've been doing is mirrored, if you will, if you can forgive the play on words there, in a process that Abraham Hicks teaches. They call it segment intending. And the way segment intending works is, as you're about to do the next segment of your day, a segment can be defined any way you want to, but basically the next thing you're going to do in your day, before you do it, you get yourself to a space, basically what you just described, of getting yourself into a good headspace before you go do it. That's segment intending. And you can even kind of play out in your head how you want the next segment to go. Give yourself a little bit of a law of attraction boost.
Said exactly.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I don't make bad choices. I just take the high road.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Nice.
Focus on the good choices. That's segment intending. So you have discovered on your own what Abraham teaches people. And they pay $250 a workshop to learn. So very good.
I didn't know I had a name. That's great.
Mm-mm.
So
always learning something new.
Now, the topic, of course, was the stuff that pops up from childhood. And what we're really talking about is stuff that gets in our way as adults. Um, Tony Robbins calls them tapes. Other people have called them tapes too, tapes that replay, that we keep replaying them in our heads. They work against us. They basically get us into bad places. We end up repeating the same mistakes over and over again. And it's because these tapes that we learned when we were quite young, usually unintentionally. Usually it was a parent or a teacher or some adult taught us this stuff, but they didn't sit down and say, "Well, I'm going to teach you how to screw yourself up for the rest of your life." It's just what came out just ended up screwing you up for the rest of your life, but that wasn't their intention at all. And those kinds of tapes actually can work against us. So. I mean, there are so many different kinds of ways those tapes can actively play out in a person's life. But just kind of a common example is somebody who grows up and they get into the dating world and they keep dating the same kind of person over and over again, and the relationship keeps breaking up because there's some key element that's missing, and they keep looking for that same person who has the same kind of thing that's missing over and over and over again. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about that kind of a tape. Mm-hmm. So. First of all, those things can come up, but second of all, they do impact our ability to attract what we want and focus on what we want, because we can actively end up focusing on what we don't want, even when we think that we're focusing on what we want. That gets really, really confusing, to say the least. So that's really the topic that we're trying to address here. Now, Mike, you were talking about how when you were doing the mirror work, that kind of stuff came up. When it comes up, first of all, it must be a little confusing, because usually that's the way that feels when something like that comes up. But second, when you finally get a handle on what it is, how are you using the mirror exercise to deal with it?
Now I'm able to talk it through in the mirror, like look myself in the eye and tell myself how ridiculous this is, that I'm allowing this to continue in my life. Mm-hmm. And things that I've learned from the past when doing self-help, it seems to be when you pivot away from something and you go from an old habit to a new habit, the old habits show up to try and test you to see how true you are to your new habits. Have you been able to make that shift yet? So, and I think that happens a lot as you progress and evolve. Things come up to try to trip you up to see if you're really focused on this, and I've been noticing some of that happening. And it's been a little challenging, so I'm able to address it in a different way now. I have a lot more power over it, opposed to it having power over me. It lasts, sometimes. The other day it lasted a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but eventually I was able to work it all out.
But that's big, because what typically happens with these things is that we let them keep going and going, and they play out for days, weeks, and months at a time. So, right. I mean, who cares if it took 24 hours to figure it out? You got to figure it out in 24 hours. You didn't live with it for the next 5 weeks. That's pretty big stuff.
Right. Yeah, I'm really excited about the growth with the mirror work.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a little tricky at first, but you stick with it and you discover many things about yourself that you didn't realize before, and the power that you actually do have over that voice, and finding ways to change some habits. Because changing habits is key. You're getting rid of those old habits and rewrite your story, as they say, right? Rewrite your story.
Right, because you're rewriting what's stored in what they call your subconscious mind, which is a whole other topic itself, what the subconscious mind is. But that subconscious mind is where all those tapes play. So if you can rewrite the tapes, you basically take their power away and replace them with what you want to be there in place of them. And that can be pretty strong. You mentioned what it's like when stuff comes up, and that it tends to, and I actually provide the example that it tends to replay itself over and over and over again. That's actually one of the best cues that you get that you've dredged something up, because you recognize the pattern, right? You recognize that this is something that you've had happen repeatedly. That's usually the sign of something that is one of those tapes coming from, usually from an early age. Not always, but usually from an early age. And it's one of my favorite indicators. If I see the same thing happening over and over again, and it's like, light bulb just went on. I know this is something important, something that something I've got to dredge out. I got to root this thing out pretty quickly. May not know what it is yet, but I may not know what's causing the pattern, but hey, I recognize the pattern. That's a big step.
Well, one thing that I know, a lot of it is from childhood, and utilizing Reiki healing energy techniques, I can go back and heal that time in my life. You know, kind of like energetically think about that event. If an old feeling comes up that was not a good time in my life as a child, and I realize, well, this is what's coming up right now, and how do I deal with it? Well, go back and rewrite that story back then, make it a better story, heal that energy of that time, and I'm seeing some results with that. So the mirror work has allowed me to be able to recognize the ability to do that, go back in that time and fix that problem, kind of like be okay with it back then that's affecting me now.
And how do you erase it? What's the method you use for erasing it? I mean, do you write something on top of it, or what do you do?
Well, you can use different techniques, but I go into a meditation on it and see it in a different way. Change the results of it and get rid of that awful feeling in your gut and feel good about the fact that you were able to do that. And with the mirror work, it allowed me to think through that process. Well, okay, this keeps coming up. Why? And I'm saying this stuff into the mirror, but I need to go back in that time and relive that in a different way. Relive it in a way that works best for me. Go through that horrible, horrific time and just see it differently and heal it then and allow the healing to happen now because of that process. And I'm having some great results with that. And because of the mirror work, it allowed me to really stop and focus on that and process it. Because in Reiki healing energy, we heal now. We heal if somebody's going through emotional trauma or physical discomfort. We go to that energy area and we balance it with our Reiki healing energy, allow that to come into the experience. And before the mirror work, that would be my method of healing. And after the mirror work, I realized, hey, I need to go back in that time and heal that time in that place. Because it's energy and thoughts, and you can do whatever you want with them.
Now, I suppose what Mark would do with them, since he's a stand-up comedian, he'd probably use them as material for his next act. But
yeah, there you go.
Any chance I get.
Why not?
Because that's where the best material comes from anyway, is from real life, right?
Oh, yeah. I say that. I open my show with that and give a few people some examples.
Like what?
So basically I say, I tell them I don't have a job. All I do is watch y'all do stupid stuff all week. Then you buy a ticket, you come in here, I stand on stage, tell you what you did. And believe it or not, sometimes it's just that simple.
Wow.
Right?
That's the fun part about being a comedian.
Develop their own ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, y'all do my work for me.
Well, you have to be the observer too. You have to pick it up, right? I mean, you have to extract the useful stuff.
I gotta put it into words. And,
right.
But it's the general public's actions that create my words.
I got to ask you, what's your favorite sources? Where do you like to look most often for your material?
My past.
Mm-hmm.
You can't offend too many people, and basically, if my opinion is my opinion and I offend somebody, I really don't care because it's my opinion and it means nothing. But I won't go out of my way to take a cheap shot to get a laugh.
Sure.
That I'm against. So when you look at your own life, and one thing, it's harder for other comics to steal from you. But I mean, it teaches you to laugh at yourself, and it's you can engage people a whole lot more when you're making fun of yourself. Because they can look at me and join right in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a better plan or tactic than generally making fun of other people.
Yeah. Well, that and my whole brand, the Southern Not Stupid. I'm always fighting the stereotype by pointing out the stupid things I see all over the country, not just the South.
Right.
Well, share the pain. I love it.
All these stupid things, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no lack of material for that, I'm sure, because we're really good at creating pain. We're experts at it. That's one of the reasons we do a show here, is to focus on the daily dose of happy, because we have to kind of like provide the antidote for all that pain that we generate. Absolutely. Hey, before I'm just realizing we got about 10 minutes left, and I hadn't got the promo messages in, so let me get those in, and then we can finish off the conversation. But first off, if you're not yet a subscriber, please become one. If you like what you're hearing, you want to get all the shows that come every week. There's at least 11 shows coming every week, and you can get them by the easiest way, if you're not really a techie person and you aren't really sure how to find a podcast on your own, just go to our website, loatoday.net, and there's links right there that you click on to subscribe to the podcast. And once you're a subscriber, make sure that you're sharing on social media the fact that you are listening to the loatoday.net episodes every time, because every time that you put something out there, you're helping more and more people get that daily dose of happy and help to combat all those negative, painful things that they've created in their own lives or are picking up from the lives of others. We need to have that daily dose of happy, and we need to have the antidote to all the negativity that's out there. So please continue to share, because that sharing is really making a difference, and we really appreciate it very much. So there's our two main promo messages for the day.
Still there.
All right.
Very good, yay.
Yeah, that's right. that's a little thing that Mike and Anne Marie have going, Mark. That they have their own special little cheer. They even have it as an acronym. VGVGY.
Well, yeah, but actually now that comes from laughter yoga. We didn't make that up. That comes from laughter yoga. You can look that up. That's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
It's a real
Okay.
thing in laughter yoga. Yeah, very good, yay! Because you put your hands in the air above your head on the yay part, and because when you put your hands above your head, just the simple act of doing that causes your body to release endorphins and makes you feel better.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something you can try in your act, Mark. You can just try to get everybody to raise their hands above their head and see if that helps get more laugh, you know?
Yeah, when you want to drink, tell them when they want to drink, wave both arms.
That's right.
They won't even know what they're doing.
That'll work.
There you go.
I like that.
I'll take any advantage.
So let's see. We know that the importance of dredging stuff up, not dredging it up, but when it comes up, dealing with it, identifying the fact that there's stuff in the past, and finding your best strategy to overcome it or erase it or whatever it is that you need to do. And Mike, you were describing very nicely what you've been doing with the mirror work. Anne-Marie, what's your favorite way to deal with stuff as it comes up? Because I hope you don't really go after it, but maybe you try to find it yourself. But either way, when it comes up, what's your strategy? How do you deal with it?
Well, I haven't really figured out the best way to do that. I was just listening to a YouTube the other day by Christy Marie Sheldon, and she was talking about she was leading us in a meditation on how to let go of it. And I guess the biggest thing is just to recognize it and acknowledge it. And for me, just say, okay, well, that was in the past, and I'm going to let go of that. And just have the intention of letting it go. And I don't know if that's enough or not. I don't know, but I'm going to hope it is.
Well, it is if it is. I mean, if
know.
that actually makes the difference, then it makes the difference. If it's not enough, then sometimes you got to take on another step or something. But I think it's a good sequence. I mean, basically, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to let go of stuff. So nothing wrong with what you're doing that I can see.
Yeah,
It really,
I don't know.
It just comes down to how effective it
do you
is
have a
for
technique?
you. Yeah, first of all, to
Yeah,
notice
I
it.
don't know.
Noticing is the most important
Well,
part. What was that, Mike?
if I could pipe in on that for a second, one thing that we talk about a lot is embracing it and not, giving it more resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And so embracing it and allowing it to process and not let it take a hold of you.
Mm-hmm.
See it as like a ticker tape going through your mind and not having it locked into your head or hanging on to the resentment of it or whatever that crappy feeling is about it. That helps a lot in the process of how to deal with it. First of all, embrace it and not give it resistance, not feed it the negative frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I recognize what's going on. This is an old habit. and I'm practicing the new habits. So the new habits are now stronger than the old habits. So we're going to let this process and allow the new habit to take over and shut that old habit up. Sit down and shut up, old habit. You're done.
Mark, as in your role when you're doing the stand-up, I mean, you already acknowledged you draw a lot of your material from your own self anyway. Sometimes when you dredge that stuff up about yourself, I mean, you're trying to turn it into comic material, but sometimes it's got to also affect you emotionally. How do you handle that? How do you deal with that?
Oh, I just avoid it.
Just avoid it. Run away.
If it's painful, we're going to let that one go.
Yeah.
I just look for the funny.
Yeah.
Well, you said the magic words. You said let that go.
Yeah, well, I have made some really hilarious on and off stage stories about my first marriage and the divorce. Just laugh to keep from crying. I'll have to tell you that story one day off the air, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or when we have more time. It would really eat up way too much of valuable time here. But, I've just learned how to laugh at it.
Laughter's powerful.
No matter how bad it is, just about. I mean, nothing funny about the Holocaust, but pretty much you can always find something funny in your own tragedies, or at least you got to try.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's true. Laughter is very powerful. I mean, that's why they're talking about the laughter yoga, of course. And I like trying to find stuff to laugh at anytime that I can throughout my day, because it's a great way to shake yourself out of the doldrums, no matter what situation's going on, no matter how serious it seems. If you can find a way to laugh, it just feels better. And it doesn't seem to be quite the same problem that it was. So, I mean, I'm all in favor of finding the laugh.
Right.
In fact, when you're finding the laugh, that's how you're getting your routine together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then I just hope everybody else thinks it's funny.
Well, that's where the testing comes in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the secret is you write what you think is funny, not what you think other people will be funny. Then you can, it'll be real and you can sell it better and tweak it. And then, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, move on.
Right. Yeah. But you also have to have the fortitude, shall we say, to try putting it out there and risk that it falls flat on the floor. It takes a little doing to do that.
There's ways around that too. When you have a new one, here's a little comedy 101. You go into it with a joke that always works, and you have a joke that always works that you can come out of it with. So you got to laugh going in, and if it bombs, you've got to laugh coming out.
Okay. So
I'm taking notes, Mark. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I know. I now have to kill you.
Actually, that makes sense though for life. Now that I think about it, because in life you want to do the same kind of thing. You want to try to soften things, and laughter is a good way to soften things. Not that you want to tell jokes all the time necessarily, but you want to find ways to soften stuff. That makes sense.
Yeah, lighten the energy, sure.
Yep.
Yeah, they call it the sandwich. That's the sandwich method.
The sandwich method.
Yeah, you put something. Even when you want to tell somebody something that they don't want to hear, you sandwich it in between two things that they do want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, same principle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a great tactic, Mark. I'm going to relay that to some of the comedians that come to the Buttonwood Tree. We have an open mic on every Monday night, and we get a lot of comedians that come in and practice their stuff. So I'm going to share that with them, if you don't mind.
Okay. Hopefully they already know that, but yeah, please do.
I would hope.
Okay.
Hey, speaking of which, give you 10 seconds to talk about the Buttonwood. What's coming up next at the Buttonwood for people who are living in central Connecticut to go to?
Very good. Yeah. So Monday night's open mic. Tuesday night we have laughter yoga at 6:00, and you can find out more about the Buttonwood Tree Performing Arts Center online at buttonwood.org.
All right.
Thursday night we have an art reception from 6 to 8, and then Friday and Saturday night our shows are always 8 to 10. We have a Cuban pop singer who's going to bring her band in and record a CD on Friday night, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then Saturday night we have the Dr. Steve Band, which is a local classic rock band on Saturday night. So, and I think they're doing a show called The Twilight Zone. So that ought to be interesting.
All right.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Very good.
We like to have fun at the Buttonwood Tree.
Good stuff. And then Mark.
Saturday morning we have. Oh, Saturday morning. One more thing. Saturday morning we have a workshop called Aligned with Source, which is probably the closest thing to studying the law of attraction that we have.
Okay.
At the Buttonwood Tree, and it's always very powerful from 10:30 to noon with my dear friend Anita Gandhi. So that's the Buttonwood Tree, and come on down and visit us.
Very good.
Well, it's been too long since you've been there.
I know. We got to get down there. We'll be getting down there pretty soon. And then Mark, tell people about where they can find out more about your Southern Not Stupid routines and acts and schedules and all that good stuff.
The schedule's not there, but it's southernnotstupid.com. Try to keep it as simple as I can.
Right.
And anybody can go there, can email me. I think I was saying that the other day, like, if you're listening, please email me. I've got time. I'm lonely. My wife's at work, you know. So.
That sounds great.
I'm judging a contest in Savannah next weekend, and then after that, I'll be down in Cape Coral and Sarasota, Florida. So eat your hearts out when the weather drops up there.
All right, there you go. Well, great. Hey, this has been good discussion, guys. And look forward to talking to you all next week.
We're planning on coming up there.
Well, cool.
Oh, good.
Let's do it again.
Thanks for letting me drop in on your call tonight.
Well, then just let us know when you're going to be here. That's going to be great. And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good week.